Hello, everybody. I am Azif Mustafa. Welcome to Stay Kind, your weekly feel good show on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Welcome, everyone. If you are tuned in right now, please, in the chat, tell us where you're from, what you're doing. And I hope it's live. I haven't checked actually. So I hope it's on live right now on LinkedIn and on YouTube. We have a very fantastic show for you tonight or today, wherever you're tuning in from. It is now 9:05 p.m. here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we welcome everyone from all over the world tuning in from wherever you are on our weekly show. We come to you every week with some feel-good topics, and we have several items we'd like to talk about today. I'd like to wish everybody a Mid-Autumn Festival. That was yesterday, I believe, and happy Mooncake Festival. I have my mooncake with me. Happy Mooncake Festival, everyone. And tonight we're going to talk about a fantastic topic. We have Monica from Germany. Hey, Monica. Thanks for tuning in. We have several people. I'm just going to shout out to people. Hey, are you from Malaysia? We have, my doctor, Doc Asri in the house from Banting. Hello, Doc. Hello, everyone. So, glad to have you on board. It's going to be an interesting topic, like I said. So without further ado, I will introduce my guest and our guest tonight. None other than Malisse Tan. Hey, how are you?
Hello, good evening. I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks for coming on board. It's been a while since we have talked to each other, since we've met. We met a few years ago. I believe I was working with Magic or Girls in Tech or something like that. And I mean, you've been in this entrepreneurship space, startup space as well for a while. And I've been kind of working in that space as well. So perhaps you'd like to just introduce yourself to our audience. There's several people in the audience right now introducing themselves in the chat. So perhaps I'll pass to you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Malisse. I'm based here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm currently working actually on my third startup. I am the founder and CEO or Chief Estrogen Officer for Bobble. So Bobble is a period wellness company. We currently are focusing on providing eco-organic period care that's also available on subscription. So we're currently available in Malaysia and in Singapore, but we will be expanding into more markets in the next 6 to 8 months. Outside of work, I'm actually a mum of 2. So I have a daughter who's about 4.5, and I have a son who's 7 months old. And I also get involved in sort of local community work. I've been attached to Lean in Malaysia, so part of the founding team of Lean in Malaysia 6 years ago, and also dabbled in some community work in our refugees here in Malaysia.
Wow, you have a full plate, it seems. And you're saying this is your third startup. So how did that start? Did you work elsewhere, or when did that entrepreneurship bug hit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I've grown up having surrounded by entrepreneurs in my family. So without really understanding what entrepreneurship meant, mom and dad I know had from time to time in their careers kind of run different things. I think my grandparents even. My granddad used to be one of the most famous ice cream sellers in his town. So quite an entrepreneurial family. And I started off in corporate. I was doing media monitoring, SaaS, sort of selling SaaS solutions as my first job, working across APAC, and I was doing that for a good 8 years. And sort of during that time, I had dabbled in a couple of tech startups, and this is sort of just before Magic even launched in my first startup. It was Shopify back in the day, before Shopify come into the market, but I learned a hard lesson. That startup didn't work out. I failed forward. It was just not the right timing to market, as everyone had just started selling on social media, and that was free compared to paying for a platform. And then I dabbled in a second startup at the later part of my career, and that was in property tech. Again, lesson learned, fell forward, was not the right co-founders, not the right partners to really take this to market with me. And so at that point, I was sort of deciding to leave my job. I'd been with that company for 8 years. I thought I should try something else and grow new skill sets. And I was actually pregnant at the same time. So right after I had given birth to my daughter in 2017, I was actually diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. So I guess it was timely in a way that I had quit my corporate job, which was quite an intense role. And then I could really then just focus on my health and being a new mum. So during 2017, I decided to go through chemo, and I went through 6 months of chemo. And during that time, I guess now being a new mum and, I guess my health was at stake, I became a lot more conscious of what we were using at home for the family and for myself. So really looking into like the detergents that we're using, the, body care, soaps, and all those sorts of things, and really trying to switch out more consciously to more plant-based or natural-based products. And so as I was making these changes at home, I also started looking into my own period products, because I've been, I'm going to be very transparent in this conversation tonight, because I really want to normalize period talk. I've been a tampon and panty liner user for the majority of my adulthood. And in Malaysia, we only really have one brand at the time. And so as I was sort of researching more about what I was actually using in my body, I realized that a lot of the generic brands are made with different types of chemicals, and there's a lot of synthetic materials, and they're packaged in plastics, quite obviously. So I decided that I was looking for an alternative. I couldn't find that available in Malaysia at the time. None of the international brands shipped here. Or it was too expensive to ask my friends to bring it back. It was just not sustainable. And so I felt that there was a gap in the market from a business perspective, but as a consumer, it was something that I wanted to solve for myself. And if I think about now, I have a daughter and her future, and what would I want her to use, right? And so really it's about how we can be using safer and sustainable period products. And as I was going through this sort of, I went through about 9 months of research in this before I really started anything. And after chemo, I had actually gone back to work. I started working for a German innovation consulting company. And so that was my full-time job, and doing Bobble was sort of a side hustle. I sat on it for a good 8 to 9 months before taking the courage to really take that leap again. And I decided that, if I was to go into a third startup, I have a second chance in life. I wanted to do something that had purpose, and something that, there was a real problem that I wanted to solve, and something that was beyond the product, right? And I think for us at Bobble, the values in which we stand for, and the purpose and the mission behind the brand is bigger than the products itself. So what happened was actually we soft launched in end of 2019. I just did a couple of small bazaars. We didn't really have a proper working website at the time. And then COVID hit early last year, and then I actually lost my job in innovation consulting. And so I guess it was a mini blessing in disguise, where it forced me to then work full time on Bobble. And we officially launched in June 2020. But before that, actually, we sold out on 2 of our products, our day pads and our night pads. We sold out within 7 months. So that kind of validated that there is a want in the market here in Malaysia, at least. And that gave me a bit more confidence to then go into this full-fledged. So that's my why. And I felt that, at the time when I decided to do this, it was when the UN had launched their 17 SDGs. And I felt that it really spoke to me, and it sort of tied everything together. As I mentioned before, I work a lot with, previously with women in careers, and my work with Lean In and work with the youth, sort of tying, my passion with supporting women and youth. And now, I'm thinking about the future and our children and sort of the future of planet Earth. I felt that all those values kind of came together, and it's pulled it in place with Bobble. And, for the ladies here in the audience that's actually watching this, you can ask yourself, how much do you actually really know about your period health or your menstrual well-being, or how much do you really know about your cycles? And no matter which part of the world that you're from, I would say most of the time we know very little. We're not really taught this that much in school, and there's only so much we learn at home. And so this is where a big part of our purpose at Bobble is also how we can break the stigma, how we can normalize period talk, how we can improve education in the space and improve accessibility to safer alternatives.
Wow, I am proud of myself for helping to normalize period talk. I do have two
Yeah.
daughters, so it's not unusual for me to do the 7-Eleven run and buy some products for
Great.
them or my wife. So I'm used to that. So like I said, I have two daughters. So what
There you go.
you've spoken about really speaks to me, because obviously we want the best for our children, and we want the world to be a better place, for sure.
Mhm.
So this convergence of purpose and opportunity and timing, I guess,
Yeah.
is all right, for you to take this step. And we have many men in the audience. Mushrif is saying, wow, maybe the
Fantastic.
first time they're talking about or they're listening about this. So if you have questions, guys, please feel free to type in the comments. We'll put it up here. All of you tuning in on LinkedIn and on YouTube, please feel free to ask questions of Malisse and of myself. I'd like to talk a little bit about more about the company Bobble.
Sure.
First of all, the name. What's behind Bobble?
I know I get this question a lot, and it's quite a funny story. So when I was doing my research, I had to name the Excel files right on my computer. And at the time, my daughter was about 1, and she was starting to talk. And so one of the first words she was trying to say was the word bubble, but it sounded like bobble. And so I just took that word and named my files, and it kind of just stuck. And I kind of decided that, I thought it was just easy to say, quirky enough to remember, and it's vague enough. So touch wood, if I had to pivot as a business, then I didn't really have to change the name. So it kind of just sort of stuck with us. And
that's precious. That's a great story on how the company name came about. So at the moment, it's still a subscription service. You can't find it in stores, or?
Yeah, so although I started off being, I was really gung-ho, I want this to be e-commerce, I want this to be subscription. As everyone knows, the subscription economy is booming. We subscribe to Netflix and Spotify and gym memberships and all sorts of things. Why not for our periods, right? Something that happens 450 times in a woman's or men's.
You were talking about your subscription to LinkedIn Premium.
So although we're predominantly e-commerce and online and subscription, but because of the demand of the customers, and surprisingly enough, during COVID this past year, we had a lot of demand. People actually wanted it in store. We had stores actually coming to us wanting to stock our products. So we're, I guess, technically omni-channel, and so we're available in about 30 other retail locations across Malaysia and Singapore. So, so if you're in Penang or Johor, you can find us there. You can find us in Kuching, obviously across Klang, and we have about 3 locations coming up in Singapore.
Wow. Congratulations. So, and it's labeled as a organic product. So is that difficult? I mean, what's the sourcing like? How do you develop the product?
Sure. So first and foremost, I think if you look at what we are buying off the shelves, if women and even men who are doing your run for your wife or your sister or your girlfriend, you can pick up a packet of pads and or a box of tampons and try to read what it's about, try to read what the ingredients are made of. And a lot of the times you don't understand what it's made of. And maybe they don't even declare what it's made of, because in the US, period products is declared under the FDA as a medical device, so they legally don't have to actually publish what the products are made of. So that was, when I found this out in my research, that was quite concerning for me. And for us, we want to be a transparent brand as much as possible. So why organic cotton, right? I mean, organic cotton, obviously we want to source from organic farms. They're a lot kinder to the skin. It's hypoallergenic. No one really talks about this, but it's very common. I would say like about 1 in 4 women may suffer from some sort of allergic reaction or rash, especially during their periods. And that's sometimes attributed to the period products that they use because of, the synthetic cottons and rayons, perfumes. If anyone buys scented pads out there, that's one of the culprits, because perfume in itself is an irritant to the skin. And if you think about, that part of a woman's body is one of the most sensitive and most absorbent part of a woman's body. So we selected organic cotton because it's a lot kinder, and it's also eco-friendly. It's fully biodegradable. And there are a lot of other elements to our products as well, because not just organic cotton, we have several other elements that make up a pad. Our tampons are fully 100% organic cotton. And our packaging packaging in itself, we have this packaging. So we have what is called FSC certified boxes. It's made from sustainable forests, so meaning that every time they every time they cut down a tree, they plant back a new one. And we use soy ink as well. So again, veggie dye rather than your digital ink, because that's petroleum based as well, and that's not environmentally friendly. So, really we're trying to think as much as possible of all elements of our products to not only be safer to the body, but also more eco-friendly, and it's biodegradable when you're actually disposing it, and it goes through our waste management system. So, when it comes to things like sourcing, I think a lot of you guys may have heard of the term greenwashing, and we're seeing that come out and being called out more and more. A lot of brands and sort of body care, personal care, beauty and wellness, there's a lot of greenwashing happening. And so I would urge people to really start reading the labels. I think the Gen Zs are doing, they're a lot more woke, and they are practicing this more. I think us a little bit older, we kind of, this if it ain't broke, why fix it mentality. I'm kind of used to these brands, but I think it's worth sort of picking up and really reading the labels on the box, right? A lot of brands can say organic or natural and but if you really read the ingredients, or do they actually have like, you should have like a logo, like a little stamp or a chop that you can put on your packaging or on your website. There's a certification come with like a little code number, like we have here with our boxes, things like that. So when we were sourcing, we needed to ensure that we source from farms that were certified organic cotton, and the certification comes from the Global Organic Textile Standard, or GOTS, which is headquartered in Amsterdam. So, we look at things like sourcing, we look at lab reports and making sure everything's actually being tested, etc., before we decide to take this to market.
Right. But like you said, a lot of the ingredients that make up these products are not listed. So how does a consumer, I mean, if we didn't do 8 months of research, so how do we find out what's in these products on the shelves?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only so much we can do. I think it's a responsibility of a company or a business or a brand to also be, I guess, as transparent as possible. And there's still a lot of change that needs to happen, whether it's regulations or policies that perhaps need to be in place to enforce these things. I mean, here in Malaysia, the fact is that there is not much enforcement in this. So it's so easy for anyone to just OEM something, slap on a label and sell it without really just checking the sources and checking the ingredients is actually used in the product itself. Is it actually hurting or harming or helping the consumer? So, I mean, it does take time and effort, and that's just sort of the unfortunate or a slightly inconvenient effort we'd have to take in, if you see a product, you're like, they claim this and that, maybe you're going to do a quick Google, have a look at their website quickly. Do they have certification and whatnot on their website? It's hard, like, there are ways to really cross-check stuff. So if you want to say cross-check, our source of organic cotton in the directory of GOTS, it's there. But again, it's just, it makes it quite difficult for a consumer to really double-check this stuff. So I think it's hard for me to really answer this, but I think it needs to be a kind of two ways. The consumers, we have to speak up. We shouldn't be afraid to question, call out brands, and not just believe at the first thing that you see just because it says organic on the front of the box and we just believe it. Don't be afraid to question it, because it's your consumer right to do so. At the same time, I'd love to see more and more businesses actually be a bit more transparent, and hopefully there's more regulations, policies in place to enforce some of these things.
Right. What's the product line currently like? What products do you offer?
Okay, so, and I'll answer Umi's question in a minute. So currently our core products are, we do disposables right now. We have day pads, night pads, panty liners, and 2 sizes of tampons. So that's our core now, which generally covers the majority of the menstruating market for those who use disposables. We've been asked about, and Umi, just to sort of answer your question, why haven't we gone into cups or rewashable pads? And they are, by far, yes, they are the most sustainable alternative, not just in terms of the environment, but also in terms of your pocket, right? Although upfront you might be, spending 80 ringgit, or $10, $20, but it's an investment that's worth taking. However, for me, I was trying to bridge that gap between the generic brands and the sustainable alternatives, like cups, rewashable pads. In the Western markets, you find things like menstrual discs, etc. So I wanted to serve sort of the wider market, and it was really, we didn't want to change the behavior of how someone uses a period product, because I think to enable change, it's going to be quite difficult, especially being so used to using pads and tampons in a certain way for like, 5, 10, 15 years. So rather than changing the behavior, we change out the product and the packaging and what that's made of, so at least I could have control over that. And at the same time, I didn't want to be a hypocrite, if I'm going to be honest. I'm not personally comfortable and ready yet to use a menstrual cup. I am, on the go a lot with work, with being a mum. I also felt it was perhaps less practical for me to use a cup or a rewashable pad when I'm out, because then in a public space, it's going to be a bit inconvenient to wash, and then you'd have to probably carry a plastic bag with you, and you have to have a few with you. And so it was a bit of the inconvenient factor, although now with work from home and people are home more, then those are absolutely fine. But there are plenty of other brands out there. I think if anything, I don't see them as direct competitors. I see them as partners. And I believe a lot in collaboration over competition, and how we can work with sustainable brand alternatives together. And really together, it's how we can pull in the mass consumer and menstruator to start switching to sustainable alternatives. So, Umi, to answer your question on my opinion, I think reusable pads are great. They are hygienic if you take care of them. So you've got to make sure not only you're washing them, but you're drying them as well. So you've got to make sure that whichever brand that you're buying, check on how you take care of them, whether they you can machine wash, that you can tumble dry, or if it's hang out to dry. It depends on the materials that they use. Make sure that they also use if you can, find organic cotton rewashable pads as well. They're also a lot kinder to the skin rather than using synthetics. But it's a lot better than, I don't know, we're going to touch on this point in terms of period poverty. There's a massive population, especially here in Malaysia with our B40 community, Sabah Sarawak as well, where they're using coconut husks or like old rags and newspapers, partly because of access, partly because they just don't know any better, and can't afford it, and that leads to then potential sicknesses or infections, it's just it's happening all over the world actually. Period poverty doesn't just happen in third world countries. Even in countries like the US, if you look at the homeless, they also suffer from period poverty as well.
Right. So now that we've talked about the product line and where they come from, I'd like to show a little clip that you have. And maybe we'll talk about that
sure
after this. There you go. I love it. Bloody good stuff inside.
I did not tell, so for the audience, I didn't tell Azib to put this video. I didn't even know you see this video. But thank you for sharing that, of which I had done on my phone.
No, it's awesome. This is, people need to know what's available. So what is in that box?
So with our period subscription service, you can actually customize what you receive and also how frequent you receive it. So we want to give our customers the power to customize their period subscription box. So you can choose the number of boxes that you get. For example, if you're a heavy flow person, maybe you need to have 2 boxes of night pads and then a box of day pads. If you're sort of medium to light, maybe a box or 2 boxes of day pads and a couple of boxes of night pads. So really, we let our customers have the power to choose, and you can adapt your subscription as and when your body changes, because we journey menstruators from puberty all the way to pre-menopause, and you've got motherhood in between and all sorts of stuff, and so your period cycle is going to change. So in that box, it's really about choosing what's right for you, and you can obviously pick and mix and swap things out as and when you go, and then you can choose a frequency, whether you want 1 month, quarterly basis, or 6 months, because I noticed that some, we have different buying behaviors. Some people like to, especially with your own personal supplies, you like to hoard and sort of buy in bulk and just know that it's readily available in the bathrooms. That's why we gave the 3 to 6 month option, and some are more reactive and they like to buy on the go, so there's that monthly alternative. Although we do recommend to buy on a 3 or 6 month basis, because that actually reduces carbon footprints. It reduces in, packaging and materials used, less waste. And actually, it's cheaper for the customer because they don't have to pay shipping every month, right? You just pay once every 3 months or once every 6 months.
Are there expiry dates on these products?
That's a really good question. So upon production, we encourage our customers to use it within 3 years of the manufacturing date that we have on the box, which is plenty of time.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a surprise for you. Actually, we do have a special guest, a co-host for me coming on board midway, and she's going to be asking Malisse some questions as well. It is the one and only Ayu Shahira. Apa khabar, Ayu?
Kababae. Hi, Malisse. Hi, Aziz.
Hi,
Hey,
Evening.
welcome.
Yeah, I was listening to the conversation just now. I'm really interested in like knowing more about like the period talk we call. Yeah, because it's quite sensitive among Malaysian to talk about this. Of course, some of people they're a bit conservative, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'll be honest, look, we are a business right now, and there is a business model, and obviously we're still a very new small business, and we're driving towards profit making, of course, but not without, I'm not forgetting those who don't have access. So as much as possible, in our own small capacity, we do try to, we have a percentage of what we do in our business that goes towards social impact causes. There's a lot of different things that we're going to be working towards to try to close this period poverty gap. So, period poverty is the lack of access to peer products. It's important that peer products aren't, overly priced and really seen as a luxury item, because really it should be an essential, and that's something that we're driving towards. But I mean, let's be honest, in this space, there's a lot of education that needs to happen, not just in terms of product, but also in terms of how our body works in that way, right? So let's talk about Malaysia. The fact of the matter is there's been no study done in the level of period poverty here in Malaysia. So in fact, I mean, like 2 years ago when there was an event that happened about menstrual health in KL, and I think someone from one of our departments, a spokesperson, a lady from a department, was actually asked this question about period poverty in Malaysia, and she admitted that there was just no research done. But we do know for a fact that there are girls that are missing school and women that are not going to work because they don't have access to peer products. And then what happens is it becomes this vicious cycle where later on in life, they just don't have equal opportunity, right, in terms of work and career. So it can't be just me. It can't be just one brand, one company. We've got to work together as a community. It's got to be me and other period care brands, together with corporates, together with government and policymakers, together with community players, and how together collaboratively we can try to close this period poverty gap. Right? How can we get into schools? How can we change education? How can we go into rural areas and educate on ground and give them access? I think I'm just going to try and address. I think Asri, you have a couple of questions here, right? There's two parts to that, but obviously, how can we work with the government and follow suit with what Scotland and New Zealand has done? Right, and providing free period products, let's just say even in schools. I mean, for us as a business, we are now working towards how we can work with corporates and schools and universities, and how can we get period products free in the workplace? How can we have period products free in schools, right? So that's sort of one step that we can take and to sort of taking ownership in this space. But again, collectively, we've got to work together to provide access to those who are vulnerable or have less access, so on and so forth, right? And I think I just don't want to ignore the questions here, right, Asri? How do you compare in terms of affordability? When talking about period poverty, people compare prices of what they can afford, be outright purchases. Yeah. So obviously, what I do now is, I'll be honest, very targeted towards a certain demographic, let's say, in certain locations. Even, we're sending things out. Post-Laju struggles to send things out into certain areas, especially in East Malaysia, depending on your address as well. And if I were to compare our product to, if I look at the scale of things, if you compare Bobble to the generic brands that we have on the shelf, where yes, we're 25 to 50% more expensive. If we look at some of the imported, international brands that there's only really one or two that's available here, we're about 25 to 50% cheaper as well. So we kind of sit in the middle. And again, as a small business, our pricing is as such. And it's not about, I thought when I went into this, I said, I know 200 women. I'm going to have 200 customers. But the reality and a hard lesson I learned as an entrepreneur is that your friends are not your customers. And a lot of the women that I know don't actually buy from me, which is fine, to everyone's prerogative. So it's not actually about spending power. It's actually about mindset. And I do have a younger demographic that buy from us. And for them, they're willing to make that little bit of extra investment with that piece, knowing that they have that peace of mind and actually what they're using and what they're disposing of. And of course, as we scale as a business over time, I'd like to see that we can bring down the pricing so that we can become even more competitive with the generic brands and be more affordable and be more accessible to other demographics.
So are you coming from East Malaysia yourself? You're from Sarawak, right?
Yeah.
So any thoughts on the
I have
about this issue?
I have quite one good story about this actually. Like I still remember I got period and then I asked my dad to buy me the period and then he mad at me and like, why you ask me to buy this, that kind of stuff should be bought by a woman. And then like after I forced him to buy and then he went to Petronas and then bought it and then he bought the brand that I don't like to wear because that's what Malisse shared, right? Some of the brand we got some allergic reaction to it, and like and then my mom said will say to me like, you should be grateful. You know, when I was kid, I need to wear clothes and I need to wash the clothes every time I got period. So you need to be grateful. But I think in terms of this kind of product, we need to do more educational part because people need to be educated, especially when it comes to the period talk. I think, we need to try to reach out more women out there so that they're aware that actually, actually the pet itself is not just about having the pet only. We need to use self pet. I mean, like the one that have no. I mean, for me, I cannot use the one that have sand because or else I'll be getting rash and all. So and some people, I think one of the things that they don't have access is the price of the pet itself, like what you said, right? And for example, like all the moms that just delivered baby, sometimes they have problem with it and then they don't have the budget to buy the one from overseas, from the international brand. So I think having Bobble in the market will be very helpful for them. One question that I want to ask you, right? How do you deal with all those negative? Let's say if people ask you, right? Because this is kind of like sensitive product, right? Of course, you have to deal with like how do you market it because you can't simply show the pet like that to people, like you know.
We do. I simply show the pet like that to people.
Oh, okay.
This is where we've got to normalize it, right? Like if we can look at like an ad that has like a cut, someone got a cut and you see blood there, that's okay. But why can't we see like a pad with like red liquid, right? In the last 50 years, we see like period product ads and it's always blue liquid, which we're not aliens. We don't bleed blue. And so, but I know it's and that's just the reality. It's still a taboo topic. It's still sensitive, not just to men, it's to women as well. And we address it head on, and we're just being really honest in why we show certain things. So far, we've been lucky to not really have anything so bad. I mean, recently, these last few days, I don't know if you guys know about this whole hoo-ha with Libres that came out a few days ago, where Wajisman Wanita Islam, if I can say, they actually wrote a letter to Libres to actually take down their campaign because the imagery that was actually used looked too much like a woman's vulva. It was really like the butterfly pea plant, that we use for the nasi, to make the rice blue. But of course, like they're trying to educate, and even though Libres is a competitor, yes, but I'm all for the messaging behind the campaign and empowering young women to not be ashamed of the vagina, the vulva area. This is part of our anatomy and what we learn in school. So, changing up the language and what we use as well. I think don't just call it the V or like antflow. And we got all these like euphemisms for, a woman's reproductive area and for periods. We should just say it as it is. So at Bobble, we normalize it by talking about periods. We say period. We call it as a period product. I don't call it sanitary pad. I don't call it feminine hygiene product, because the word sanitary and hygiene sort of connotates it. Periods are dirty, and period blood in itself is actually not dirty. So we've really got to change out the language that we use, which will help to shift the mindset. At the same time, we've got to be inclusive, and so we use the word menstruator a lot, because not all women menstruate and not all menstruators are women. So we've got to make sure that we're including sort of this transgender, cisgender community that also are still menstruating as well. So I think we digressed a little bit, but in terms of negative, luckily nothing too bad. Although we recently put out a TikTok video that got, I think someone reported it and got taken down, and we appealed. It got put back up, and now it's gone viral. We have over 400,000 views.
Wow.
It was a video of how to wear a pad. So it was a pair of new, clean, black underwear, and one of the girls on my team, she just opened up a bubble pad and just showed how to put it. It's got wings. How do you put it on? And we had like 30% new male followers, actually. I think males are so intrigued, like, wow, that's how you wear a pad. And so, and there are people that are still comfortable with it. Like I said, there are still women that are comfortable with it, but this is what fuels me, and is still going to be part of our mission on how we can get people more comfortable talking about this. If we can talk about, pregnancy and having a baby, why not about periods? It links together, and even sex, right? Talking about sex in a very healthy way, because this is how we need to break the chain of stigma to our children. And now I have a son and a daughter. This is going to put it to the test when they hit their puberty years. Yeah.
Cool. Maybe last questions from you, Ayu. I know you're interested in business as well, and you're into a lot of businesses and investing and all of this. So perhaps Malisse can share her experience on being an entrepreneur.
Okay, one of the question would be, how do you stay productive, Malisse? Like you have two kids. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. I'm single, but I feel like sometimes I feel like overwhelmed, like with all the things that I have. And then you even have several startup, like how do you manage to keep yourself productive and also keep motivated?
Well, the first two startups, I don't like to use the word failing forward. I like to use the word falling forward, because that means we can get back up, right? We get back up, we're going to learn, we can move on. So those are in the past. I only really have one startup now. On the side, I do some innovation consulting with the previous company I was with, because I still have my clients. So if anyone is in the space of innovation consulting or innovation, corporate innovation, you can still feel free to connect with me in that space. But Bobble takes a majority of my time now. I am half work from home, and I have to say, like, it's so hard. I think it's harder for other parents where, I'll be honest, I have a helper that really helps, because it really does take a village to raise children. So having a helper that's on standby, myself and my husband, we tag team. So there's always a parent at home. And it's just with planning, and honestly, it's not perfect every day. I may plan a week, I may plan a month, but it's just sort of taking a day at a time and just being adaptive. And I'm not gonna lie, there are times I'm just like, this is hard, and I want to go in the corner and just not go to work. But that's just part of the journey in life. And like I said in the beginning, I've been given a second chance at life, and this is part of us. I guess growing and sort of this gift that we've been given, and although you may have tough times, tough people last, right? And I guess in terms of, it's all in the mind, right? It's all in the mind, and honestly, I don't have a perfect solution. I think everyone deals with challenges and manages challenges in different ways, and juggling with two little kids. My daughter comes in sometimes in the calls in the background, and I've had my son on internal calls and with my team when I'm like this, work from home, and it's very acceptable now. So I feel like one of the great things that came out of COVID was that companies and people are just much more accepting with those who are parents, and you just have your kids around, and it doesn't mean you can't be productive. It's just really about how we plan and manage our time in a way that works for us. So what might work for me might not work for you, and I think it's a lot of trial and error and figuring out what actually works for you. But again, I guess to answer your question, what keeps me motivated? I love what I do. Like I said, it's very purpose driven, so it goes beyond being a profitable business. I don't yes, I run the business, but I don't use my personality or my brand to sell the business. For me, I want the business to stand on its own two legs, so people buy Bobble for Bobble, not because of me. And because the purpose is so strong in our message and our mission is so strong in our brand, I feel that that's where people are connecting with us, and more people are connecting with us. And I believe that building something that's beyond just being a business and a product, and really, right, that purpose again, it kind of will help to fuel you without you having to feel like you're trying to push yourself in any way.
Right. A young woman pushing herself is the definition of Ayu. She's very young. She just started work last year, and she has won awards and received so much recognition. So I'll give you a little bit of a break, Malisse, and I'll talk to you a little bit about Ayu. So Ayu, I understand you were nominated for the Monster Award, Young Asian Talent Award. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you so much. So I got a call from my university, and then they said that, oh, we want to nominate you for Monster Award. So I'm like, oh, I never heard of that before. So like, okay, so what should I do now? Like, oh, okay, yep, we'll be nominating you, but then you need to do a video. So I don't have any idea at that time. So like, okay, maybe I bought a drone. I told Azif, I bought a drone, a very expensive drone, like DJI Mini. It cost me like around 3,000, but I never use it because of pandemic, right? Because there was one time I tried to fly the drone in front of my apartment, and then the security guard stopped me. You cannot fly your drone here. So yeah, until yesterday, so I had a free time, and then I just use LRT and then go for our Dataran Merdeka, and I ask help from my friends, and then yeah, just shoot a good shot from the drone itself, and then yeah, I edited it last night, and yeah, that's how I managed to finish one reels for the nomination of the
Right,
award.
and to Ayu's comment that said Azif's very well prepared, I will prove to you that I am, because I do have that video. So I'll be showing you that video. The problem is, Ayu, I have to apologize. It took the reel format and kind of expanded it to fit the screen. So
Okay.
Ayu is not that big, but in this video, it kind of seems so. So here you go, everyone.
If you can't be right, yeah, I do the same thing. I told you that I never would. I told you I changed, even when I knew I never could. Know that I can't find nobody else as good as you. I need you to stay, need you to stay. I do the same thing. I told you that I never would. I told you I changed, even when I knew I never could. Know that I can't find nobody else as good as you. I need you to stay, need you to stay.
Wow, what do you think, Malisse?
That's awesome. I mean, that's so bold of you to stand out in Merdeka Square there to
Exactly.
boogie. I don't know if I have the courage to do that, but good on you. And that was fantastic. I think to see some of the success of what you've achieved in such a young age is amazing.
Everyone was looking at me that time. I still remember. And then, like, there was a couple there judging me, and if you can see in the in the video itself. So like, oh, it's okay. It's for video. Okay.
Well, congratulations, Ayu. That was fantastic, really. And I would urge everyone in the audience, and if you're watching a recording of this as well, Ayu put a link to where they can vote and like that video, because part of the judging, I understand, is based on likes as well. So Ayu needs as many likes as you can get. So everyone in the chat, please go to the link and like this video on Ayu's Instagram. That was amazing. I'll definitely forward it to all of my friends and repost it as well, because that was really cool. So Ayu, we'd like to thank you for coming on board. There's a lot of questions still on the chat that we'd like to address, but thank you so much for coming on board. And remember, we're normalizing period talk, as you said. So we hope we can use your platform as well. We just saw that you had almost 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. So let's bring this conversation to them as well. And let's all talk about it. So everyone, help me say goodbye to Ayu. Bye.
Thanks, Ayu.
Okay.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us. So yeah, how about that for a young person? Amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, I think the young generation now, like, they do so much in such a short amount of time compared to like our time. So I mean, honestly, I'm trying to like keep up. And I can only
Yeah, and
imagine, right, when the Gen Alphas
she's in her
take
early
over.
20s, right? She's in her early 20s, and she was recently, in this past few months during the pandemic, she was on panels talking about women's rights, and she was
That's fantastic.
invited by so many different conferences to speak. I believe she had hundreds of speaking engagements this
That's
year.
fantastic. And
So
this is
it's crazy.
fantastic to see the younger generation really stepping up and really leading the charge. And I can't wait to see the younger generation really just sort of take over everything. And let's see how things are different from a
Exactly.
national level, or even from a business perspective, and how businesses will
Exactly.
be run differently in the future.
Well, Nadia has a comment here. She said she researched some period products, and the reviews were just stars and no explanation. So now
Yeah.
she can understand more now that we're talking about it, because people don't typically talk about it.
No, absolutely. Again, right, Shopee, Lazada, these are marketplaces that a lot of people are like resellers. So just being, careful that you are buying a legitimate or from the official brand. Bobble, we are available on Shopee, and we also take note that we want to be as informative as possible. So you can find a lot of information about our products on our Shopee page as well. And again, I think that if businesses or resellers, right, in these marketplaces, if they're taking the extra effort to really inform you guys to make that decision before you buy, because it's so easy to buy Shopee, I know, just put a little fingerprint there and it's checked out, then all the better, and that those are probably brands that you should go for.
Right. Here's a guy that says he's actually one of my basketball teammates. So he's like, he's not gonna be able to see him at the same way again.
In a good way.
I hope so. And it's good again to bring this conversation up and normalize it, because if we didn't, maybe Asrof would never have had this conversation with anyone.
Correct.
So if you have any questions, Aro, please feel free to put it in the chat.
Absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about being a catalyst for change, it's also about how do we include men in the conversation. I think I saw a couple of things there earlier. I think Victor maybe talked about how we can educate men as well. And that's something that we want to be doing, and how we can, educate men. We want to pull men into the conversation. My husband is actually my business partner in Bobble. So we are a husband and wife duo behind this, and he is very comfortable now talking about the space, and it's also his responsibility as a father, when our daughter grows up one day, to also be able to explain equally as well as mummy does, right? And for our sons, one day they're going to grow up to be brothers, husbands, boyfriends, friends, whatever it is, right? We want to normalize this as much as possible, so that really this is just not a thing that we should be talking about anymore. It's not really a topic in the future anymore, because it's so normal. And the only way we can enact change is if men are also included in this, on sort of in all aspects, at home, in our education system, in corporate. So, for those who are running businesses, if you want, or in university schools, if you want to have free period products provided in your workplace or in your schools, do reach out to us and see what we can actually do to work with your, D&I or HR departments to be able to do that. So, as if, right, you're also one guy that I'm talking to as well on that. So
That's right. So we are almost to the end of our show. So I hope for all of our audience out there, and many more who will be watching the recordings, and we hope Ayu will repost this show, and Malisse will repost it, and all of you in the audience as well, because we want to reach as many people as possible and normalize this conversation. We can continue to have this conversation as fathers, as you said, as husbands, and as brothers and sisters, and all of this. So we hope to have that. I'd just like to ask you, Malisse, what was your takeaway from the various comments and questions, and this conversation that we had with me and with Ayu? What's your takeaway from this, and where do we move from here? How do we move forward?
Firstly, it's great to actually have a different kind of audience. I've done other types of panel talking, and I've been on social media and IG Live, and it's just a very different type of audience. And so, thank you for all your questions, and I'm sorry if we missed any out. I don't even know how to reply, in this chat thing. So if anyone here has any questions after the session, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer, or just to connect, or anything, and support anything that you guys are doing out there, whether from an entrepreneurial career or in the space aspect, happy to do so. So thank you everyone for the honest questions, and it's great to see men that stayed on until this mark and they haven't fallen off and you're still listening, so that's fantastic. And I guess the takeaway is that there's still a lot of education to be had, and again, the only way that we can make this change happen is by doing this together. So I'm open for any partnerships and collaborations out there. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can on my LinkedIn. You can email me, malisse@bobbleit.co. You can check out our website, www.bobbleit.co, or our Instagram. We are also on LinkedIn, which is @bobble.it. So many communication channels. At the end of the day, I'm the one that's probably customer service and everything else. Even the WhatsApp on our website comes to me, so I answer any customer queries through that. But as we hopefully scale as a business, I'll have a team to help me manage this right now. So so thank you for everyone for joining in and really listening to this topic that I think is really important, and I hope that you guys will share, I guess, what's been recorded tonight. And I think together, collectively, if we are not afraid to start to spread the word, that's when we also start working towards normalizing this topic and creating more awareness.
That's fantastic. And all of the questions, again, on the chat will be underneath the post. So Malisse, you can go there and kind of respond to all of them over there. But I urge everyone here and everyone tuning in to connect to each other. You know, LinkedIn is one big happy family. It's better to connect to people you don't know where the next opportunity is going to come from. And all of the people here today obviously are interested in this topic and have something to say and share about it. So please do connect to everyone. Connect to Malisse Tan, connect to Ayush Shahira, connect to me if you're not connected to me yet. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate your attention and the fantastic questions that you've had. And I really appreciate you for coming on board tonight, Malisse, and sharing with us this fantastic conversation we had tonight. So
just very quickly though, Azif, because I know there's some questions here I haven't addressed, so I will, because we're running out of time, if the comments will stay there in the video.
Yes. Yep.
I will go and respond to, Rashida, and there's a few I think at the bottom there that I might have missed, that I want to make sure that these are important questions and I don't want to ignore them. So I will address them in the comments.
Right. So yeah, everyone, please stay tuned. And again, share this post with your friends and family so that they can as well partake in this conversation that we had tonight. So with that, everybody, please help me to thank Malisse Tan for coming on board. Stay kind tonight. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we do have the wonderful Andrea Koppel. She was a CNN correspondent, the daughter of the legendary Ted Koppel. She'll be here on Stay Kind next week. So with that, again, thank you so much, Malisse, for coming on board. Really appreciate the conversation. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Everyone, please stay kind. Good night. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.